Hey everyone, Corey here with you from Dr. Marketing Tips, and I just wanted to share this webinar with you. We get a lot of requests about how to create videos for your website, or not really just for your website, but for any sort of like lobby video, or just videos in general. How do you do that? What are some of the tricks and trends in the industry and things like that? So that's what we're going to go over today. So let's jump right in. So first, let's talk about the importance of video. And this first statistic is mind-blowing to me. By 2017, online video will make up nearly 70% of consumer internet traffic. That is insane. And if you think about it, it comes down very simply to if you are not doing video right now, then the odds are that your competitors down the street are, and if they aren't, they're going to start. So you better get some videos lined up pretty much if you want to compete with the eyes of the internet. 52% of marketers worldwide say that video provides the highest return on investment. I would agree with that. And this next statistic I think is really interesting. In a recent eye mapping study, videos commanded more attention on search engine results pages, or SERPs, if you've ever heard that term. And basically what that means is, if you go to Google and you were just to if you were to type in the search term, that page that you see, that's your SERP. So if there's videos on that page, what they're saying is that the human eye is drawn toward those a little bit more than it is for the text. So in reference to your office, if you've got, if someone is searching for, let's say, an ophthalmologist in the area, obviously you've got your social links that are going to come up, you've got your review ratings that are going to come up, you've got your Google listings and all of that. But if you have video, those are going to come up as well, and they might get a couple more clicks that way. So it's just another way to get more traffic into your website. And this last one here, it's kind of an anecdotal piece of evidence, but Jennifer and I, we always hear that patients say they are choosing a particular doctor, or they decided to go through with a particular procedure solely because they saw these videos, and they either related to the doctor, or they saw a patient and they said, that's much like my situation, and I want to get back to doing those things too, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. And it's almost, it's not as good as getting a actual referral from a friend, but it's pretty close when you can tell that the patient is genuine in what they're saying, and it really does make a difference between scheduling an appointment and going to another doctor down the street. So what can you use video for? One of the most popular things is patient testimonials, as you can see on those examples on the screen. We also do some procedure-specific explanations. If you look at that image on the screen and with the two pink boxes, that is actually a web page for a client of ours that we put together. And so we've got some information about the procedure. Then there's a patient testimonial up top. If you scroll down just a little bit more, you can see the procedure-specific explanation. If you don't want to read all about it, you can watch it. Another thing that we see very popular is photo tours, which is basically, just taking a couple of pictures, maybe from the front of the office back into an exam room, into the x-ray, etc., etc., so the patient can kind of feel a little bit familiar with the office and how it looks. Obviously, you want to make sure your office is clean before you do that, but patients, they do like to, just like anything, you want to check out the place you're going to go eat before you go. You might go to Yelp and look at some photos and things like that, and it just can entice you that much more to get there. Another popular one is welcome videos from your physicians, and this can be anything from kind of getting to know them and who they are in the office and away from the office, and family life, why they went into medicine. Also, what to expect on your initial appointment. Obviously, as a patient, you're going to come in, you're probably going to fill out some paperwork, but then what happens after that? What's kind of the process? And having the physician explain that can make a big difference, especially when that patient knows that that's going to be their doctor. So it just kind of helps them, breathe a little bit easier as they get ready to do this. And something that we actually did recently that worked out really well was we had a client that it just had a location that was really hard to find, and the front desk would get a couple of calls every day, and someone would say, well, I think I'm here, but I'm not really sure. I'm kind of lost. Do I go up to the second floor, or what do I do now? And so what we did was we actually made a video on the website, and we put it on the new practice or initial appointment tab on the website. So patients go there, they're downloading their forms and what have you, but there's also this direction video, and it basically says, you turn in from the road here, you make your right, find a spot in the garage, go up the floor through the orange doors, and then you'll find the office. And it's basically just photos, but it kind of walks you through every step. And from what we have heard so far, it just made a pretty big difference for the practice and kind of freed up some of the front desk folks to focus on some other tasks. So those are just a couple of things you can use video for. There are a lot more examples out there, and there's a lot of different things you can do. But it's kind of one of those things where any video is better than no video. Patient testimonials are a little bit hard to get, but they are worthwhile. They're worth the trouble of scheduling and all that, which we'll get into in just a minute. And anything with the physicians is great too, so the potential patients can kind of get to know your doctors a little bit. So let's talk about some considerations before getting started with your videos. Obviously, you want to put the patient first, especially when with any video, because that's ultimately the end consumer is the patient. But specifically with testimonials, we want to talk about coordinating with the physician or the physician team to find the right patient. Oftentimes as practice managers or marketing managers, you don't deal with patients as much as people on the front lines do, or the physicians. So when you say that you're looking for one of these videos, oftentimes they'll go, oh, I have the perfect person. Well, we want to make sure that that perfect person is really the quote-unquote, using air quotes here, the right patient. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that they're the right demographic for the kind of procedure and kind of patient that typically comes in. You might, if you ask a physician about a patient and you say, I need this really cool patient, maybe it's a unique case or something that you want to work on, or boost your numbers on a particular procedure, and they'll go, oh yeah, no, we have somebody like that, and they'll find this like really sort of niche, small sample size person with this crazy case that they helped, and that's really interesting and all, but you want to appeal to the average patient, so just keep that in mind. You also want to make sure that this person is outgoing, not afraid of a camera if possible, because things like that, if you get someone who's really camera shy or really introverted, then you're not going to wind up with a really good end product, or you're going to have a lot of editing to do. So obviously you want to get the patient info, which includes their name, their telephone, etc., etc. We always suggest that you contact the patient when you set up the time and the date and location. You choose a location that is easiest for them to get to, even if it means rearranging your date to get there, because in the long run, it's going to be worth it. And always call and confirm the patient at least one day prior to filming to remind them. I have multiple instances where I have, set up something and then gone and been stood up by the patient, or they just forgot, they're running late, they got lost, etc., etc. They went to the wrong office. So do yourself a favor and give them a call and make sure that everything is in order before you actually get out there. So before you actually start filming, let's talk about some of the things that you need to think about. Alright, so you've got your location, you've got your patient set, or let's say even you're going to do a physician video, and so you're thinking, okay, I'm going to put him, I'm just going to have him sit at his desk, and then we're going to go over this. So think about where that desk is in relation to the office environment. If you're going to do a patient testimonial, are you going to do it during clinic? Is it going to be in an exam room? Are the rooms around you going to have patients coming in and out of them? Because if you do, every time that door opens and closes, you're going to hear it on the camera. We've actually, before, we had set up in a conference room we were gonna do, I think, like 8 doctors in a day at an office, and so we sit the doctor down and we start talking, and it turns out there's a bathroom right next to the conference room. So every time somebody went into the restroom, we could hear the door open and close, then we could hear the toilet flush, then we could hear the sink come on, and it came out on every single video. And luckily we were able to edit most of that sound out. But save yourself some headache and choose somewhere that's not right next to a busy area like a restroom or a busy exam room, let's say. Also, for patient clothing, we typically say you want them to dress casual, how they would normally. You don't want like suns out, guns out type tank tops per se, but I think a polo shirt is perfectly fine. They don't have to dress any more formal than that. Also, pay attention to the clutter in the background. Sometimes when you get going on these things and the adrenaline's flowing and you're trying to get people in and out, you sit them down and you don't really look at what's around them. So make sure that if you're borrowing someone's office, let's say, there's not a picture of their 3-year-old daughter on the wall behind the patient, or that there's not papers everywhere behind them. Also, make sure that the phone is unplugged, so that way if a call comes in, it doesn't ruin the entire scene that you're working on. So you might want to just unplug the phone before you get started. So if possible, let's say if you're doing a patient testimonial, if the physician can be there, it's always recommended that you can schedule that time so that they can attend, because as you can see in that screenshot there with the happy doctor and the happy patient, if you're at home watching that and you can see them interacting, then that's going to make you feel even more confident with that doctor and saying, oh, he's a really nice guy. He just looks like he knows what he's talking about, and he seems warm and friendly, and I get that fuzzy feeling from him, So, yeah, if the doctor can be there, it's not necessary, but and they don't need to be around for more than 5 minutes. If they can just pop their head in and you can film them and the patient interacted, it doesn't matter what they say, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But as long as you get that interaction, that is what's really key. Now, I'll say as well that I employ something, as you can see on the screen there in the quotes, the secret recording. So we have the patient sign a photo and video release, which is the last bullet there. So they know that basically anytime they step in that room, anything that they say, we're going to record, and we can use it for whatever our purposes are. So I will oftentimes, on one of our cameras, there's actually not a red recording light, so I'll just hit the button, and then as I'm setting up and getting them in the right place, I'll say something to the effect of, okay, before we start, why don't you just share your story with me, just so I kind of know and I can frame my questions that way. And oftentimes I'll get a much better version of the testimonial that way before they even know that we started. So they'll tell me the whole story. They're loose, they're natural, they really are themselves at that point. And I think that if you employ that strategy, you'll find that you can oftentimes put together almost the entire testimonial just from what they say from that very beginning session. And then from there, we have some set questions that we ask them, which are actually available on the Dr. Marketing Tips website for you. And we tailor them, depending on how the conversation is going. But, oftentimes you want to make sure that the patient focuses on the biggest benefit, kind of what drew them in, what was the tipping point for them to do something about their ailment, and then their experience with the doctor and with the staff. Because you got to remember, if these patients are agreeing to do a patient testimonial, then they're happy. So they had a wonderful experience. So it makes sense to talk about the staff, and it makes sense to talk about the doctor. It makes sense to talk about how easy it was to schedule an appointment, or how quickly the calls were returned, things like that. Because, as you know from working in the medical industry, oftentimes the quality of care is not what is in question. It's wait time, it's communication with the office, or the doctor feeling cold and what have you. So anytime that you can kind of shed some light on the fact that that didn't happen in this particular case, you really want to do that. And so that's kind of what the secret recording is, and guided questioning is along that same vein. At the end of the day, at the end of the video, you want the patient to say something to the effect of, "I'm very glad that I had this procedure. It has changed my life. I'm so much happier now. I wish I didn't wait so long. I would recommend it to anyone." There's variations of that. So just be sure that when you're asking them questions, you're kind of, leading them to the answer that you need. And it's a tricky subject because you don't want to lead them to a particular answer, but odds are they feel like that anyway, and they'll tell you that. But you just want to make sure that you get that answer in the form that you need, so that you can make the best testimonial possible. You're not making the patient say anything they wouldn't say otherwise. You're just trying to help them say it in the right way. So if you're going to do it yourself, you're going to need some equipment, obviously. And so we suggest a MacBook Pro. That's what we use. So that's kind of our computer. As far as storage goes, we suggest an external hard drive or cloud storage, just because these high definition videos can take up so much space. And if you're running on an older Windows machine, you probably don't have much space as it is. So you might want to consider, like I said, the cloud storage or external hard drive for you. And also have a good pair of headphones, because not only when you're recording so you can check sound levels, but also when you're editing, just so you don't bother your cube mates or anyone that might be in an office down the hall, depending on how loud you're listening to the video. So when you actually are editing, there's some free software out there for you. If you're running on a PC, it's called Windows Movie Maker. And if you're on an Apple product like the MacBook Pro, there's iMovie. And for the case of doing quick getting to know you doctor videos or office tours or patient testimonials, iMovie works just fine. So does Windows Movie Maker. iMovie is a little bit more capable and a little bit more flexible than the Windows Movie Maker, but if you don't have an Apple product, then you should be able to get by just fine with Windows Movie Maker. And there are some paid software options, but these they get very complex and oftentimes are a little bit more than you'll actually need. And those things are Final Cut, Adobe Premiere, and Sony Movie Studio, and there's a couple of other ones out there that are cheaper. But really, I think the best option is just to go with the free stuff. You shouldn't need much more than that. As far as the filming and editing goes, what you'll see on the screen right now are some of the products that we use. So obviously we have our tripod, so the camera's nice and steady. We use a Canon Rebel T3i. That's actually a picture of it there. It looks like a still camera, but it does do high definition video recording as well, assuming that the memory card is large enough, which is that SanDisk Extreme Pro 32 gigabyte card that you see there. And basically, you put that on the tripod, you set it on the video setting, you've got one button. It seems complex, but it's really not. Everything is kind of a point and shoot. Set it on autofocus, and you can kind of set it and forget it. We use a Rode VideoMic Pro, which is what you see on the top of the screen, and that actually slides right into the top of the camera, right above where it says Canon on top there. And you plug it in, turn it on, good to go, and the sound out of that thing is incredible. And that's called a shotgun mic, and because of the way it looks, and basically it's pointing directly at the patient or physician or whomever you've actually got on the screen, and it does a really good job of blocking out a lot of the noise that are coming in from the peripheral of the microphone. So obviously, again, you're going to need the computer. We suggest a MacBook Pro and the external hard drive. Those you can pick up relatively inexpensively from any office supply store or Best Buy, Amazon, something like that. Actually, all of these products you can find links to on the drmarketingtips.com website, and you can go from there to purchase all this stuff if you feel so inclined. So when it comes down to editing your masterpiece, and let's be honest here, every one of these is going to be a masterpiece, you want to think about the time it takes, the storage it takes, and in the location where you're going to be doing it. So let's talk about the time real quick. We find that editing 10 minutes of footage can take up to an hour or more, depending upon your experience level. Now, couple that with actually getting the footage, uploading the footage, then you've got to edit the footage, then you've got your changes, then you've got your approvals, then you've got to export your footage, then you've got to put your footage on wherever you're going to put it so people can see it, such as like a YouTube or Vimeo, something like that. And when you're all said and done, it's probably 3 to 4 hours per video of work. Yes, 3 to 4 hours per video. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to set up your schedule here so you don't drive yourself completely insane. And again, with storage space, HD video can take up a lot of time and a lot of space. So you want to make sure that you have something available because your computer is going to fill up very quickly, and then you're basically going to be out of options, and you don't want to delete this video because whether you think you do or not, eventually someday down the road you're going to need that raw footage, and so it's better to just kind of keep it off of your computer and somewhere safe. We actually use a combination of an external hard drive and cloud storage just so we can be 100% sure that we've still got everything. And as far as the location, when you're editing, it's always better to work somewhere with a reliable internet and a power source and a quiet environment so you can hear everything that's kind of going on. And there's nothing worse than trying to upload a video at your office and you're bumping up against the bandwidth, you're slowing everybody else down around you, and then the video fails and you got to start all over and you just wasted 2 hours of your life basically. So you want to make sure that the internet is reliable. So when you are editing your video, let's talk about a couple of tips. Now for length, we try and keep everything under 2 minutes or less. Even if you've got 45 minutes of footage, find a way to make it 2 minutes or less, because one of the great things about YouTube is that it provides some wonderful analytics, and we find that after that time frame, people just stop paying attention. Even if it is a big surgery and they're looking at a patient testimonial or procedure video, and you think that you'd want to know so much about this thing, a lot of times you just kind of watch the first 30 seconds and then you're done. So when we're doing, let's say for instance, a patient testimonial, I will have them say their name, say what procedure they had, who the doctor was, and then immediately move into the biggest benefit. Because that way, within the 30 to 45 second range, we've got all of the big things kind of out of the way, and then we'll back up from there. So if we know if people start dropping off at 30 seconds, they've at least heard the big benefit. And then we also suggest adding B-roll to these. B-roll is anything that is not what you're focused on, essentially. So you've got your camera set up, you're looking at the doctor, right? So he's talking about his experience and why he went into medicine, etc., etc. We don't really want to look at his face for 2.5 minutes, no matter how good looking he may or may not be. So B-roll is when you got that time blocked on his schedule, you take the 15-20 minutes, whatever it is, to actually interview him, and then have him move to his office, get him looking at an x-ray, talking with a nurse or an MA, maybe interacting with the front desk folks, or using a model, or maybe he's just checking email, whatever the case may be. And that way you can overlay some of that footage on top of the interview, and it just makes it a lot more interesting. Think of a news piece that you would see, at the 5 o'clock news, and how it's never just the reporter. It always cuts to different scenes, and you can hear the reporter kind of in the background. Well, that's what you want to do here. And same thing with transitions. It just makes it easier and a little bit more interesting to watch. You can do fade transitions, and so that there's not like these jagged cuts where you can tell that there was some sort of an edit. Anytime that you can make these transitions seamless, the better you're going to be for it. And as far as the title screens go, we like to put bumpers on the beginning and the end of a video. The beginning just usually has the logo and kind of a nice little animation, so it looks like it's a quality piece you're about to watch. And at the end, it has some sort of call to action, such as, for more, visit whatever the website address is, or schedule your appointment by calling, whatever the phone number is, something like that, so that at the end of the video, there is a distinct call to action for the viewer. And once you're done editing, we suggest exporting into an MP4 format, because MP4 is compatible with pretty much anything that's out there. And always check your volume, because let's say you edit the video and you've got the sound and the music and everything all done, right? So when you're done, you have only listened to that, let's say, on your headphones because you were being courteous to those around you. Well, it could sound totally different coming from an external speaker of a computer. So make sure that you check it both ways so you can hear how the sound mixes, because the average person is probably going to look at this without headphones. So, just something to consider there that can save you a lot of time. So when it comes to sharing your video, there's a couple of options there. We use YouTube, so I'm just going to talk about that one. YouTube is the most popular, and there are also music restrictions and licenses on YouTube. If you're publishing to YouTube, you can actually use music from their from their music library to get that done, and you don't have to pay anything. It's completely free. You can download it and put it right in your video, and you know it works, and you know that there's not going to be any issues. And you also get some really great analytics with YouTube. So that's kind of why it's our favorite, and it's our suggestion to you. So when you are filming, let's say you get your footage and you're going through it and you just realize, you've got, let's say, 10 doctors and now you've got 5 patients. That's awesome. You've got so much stuff. Well, oh no, you've got so much stuff. That's a lot of time. And if every video takes 2 to 4 hours, it can be a lot to do. So there's a couple of ways that you can find an editor. Some websites online like Upwork or Simply Hired, Elance, things like that, they have folks that will edit the videos for you. You can set up a job, hire one of these freelancers to put the video for you. There's also agencies out there that can do that for you. And either way, you're going to get a quality product. It's just a matter of how much you want to spend and how much time that you can devote to it. So a suggestion to save some time and money and effort is, once you put the video together and you're going to send it off to someone, let's say on Upwork.com, make sure that you are very specific on the parts of the video that you want and what it should say and what the title bar should be. They call it the lower third. Make sure that all of that is correct and spelled properly, because every time that you have a change, this person, let's say in Upwork, you hire someone very inexpensively and they're in another country somewhere. Well, not only is there a time difference, but also for them to show you the video, they have to make all the edits. Then they have to render the video, upload it to a website like a YouTube or a Dropbox. You have to view it, make your changes. They'll have to then change the video and then render it and then upload it again. And you get charged for all of that time. So just something to consider. Make sure that all your changes can be done at once if possible. And that's it. So when you're done, you'll have awesome patient testimonial videos and doctor videos and office videos and direction videos, right? You're going to have all that stuff when you're done with this webinar. Well, that's the hope anyway. So thank you. If you have any questions, as always, please let us know on drmarketingtips.com. You can reach us at Dr. Marketing Tips on Twitter, or you can email me directly, Corey at drmarketingtips.com, and I will be glad to help you on your future video endeavors. So I want to say thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you learned a little something. You're not totally overwhelmed with the videos, and we'll talk to you again next time.